If it's happening in New York, New Jersey, or Long Island, hear about it with Joe Piscopo. Mornings, 6 to 10 on AM 970. The Answer.
Live from the smartwaytobuy.com studios.
I'm in a New York state of mind.
Joe Piscopo on the radio, 842. Mike Gallagher comes on at 10 o'clock on AM 970. The Answer, kind enough to preview what he's talking about. Mike, welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
Hey, good morning. I'm a little sad. I'm a little melancholy because I'm telling you, this helicopter crash in the East River has just haunted me. Can I tell you something as a man-to-man that is so one of those creepy things? You know, we have these creepy things that happen in life.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have talked about this. I know I've talked about it with Frank Morano. One creepy thing is how the numbers 9/11 pop up in my life all the time, and all of us, of course, shared that day. But I will, if I never look at a clock and I glance up, I typically look at a clock at 9/11, or my watch is if it's digital 9/11.
Wow.
On the TV 9/11. That's
wow.
why. And when I said that on the air about 6 months ago, my phone's lines were flooded with people who said that. It's like, that's so bizarre, Mike. I noticed the same thing, and it could just be the significance of those numbers together for those of us who were here in New York that fateful day. But for some reason, it feels like I'm always drawn to that number. Well, in the same vein, I swear to you, Sunday night, I've got my kid in town. My son and granddaughter in town visiting for a few days. Mm-hmm. And and Trevor said, "Dad, you never enjoy this view. I've got an apartment with a really pretty view of the Hudson River."
Yeah.
And so Trevor and Lily and I stood at the window and watched the helicopters Sunday evening. And this was at about 6 o'clock. It's about an hour before and and Lily was like, there's one. Because a lot of the helicopters take off from over here. They've got Blade and I think some of the private helicopters. Yeah. And an hour later, I get the bulletin on my phone that this plane had gone down over on the other river, on the East River. Yeah. And I just got chills because I said, well, kids, we were just watching the helicopters. Yeah. So it's just, but Joe, what an awful, awful tragedy. These guys strapped in because they were, the harnesses were so, they were so tight. Yeah. Because they had the type of helicopter with no doors.
That's right.
So that they could take pictures. Yeah. It was one of those, and so they couldn't, I mean, they didn't die from the impact. The impact was easy. The guy brought it down gently. And to think of those and they were so full of life, young, vivacious.
I'm feeling that same thing. We talked to a gentleman named David Windmiller. He's the number one stunt pilot, anywhere, and he said the same thing, that pilot came down. It was a hard kind of a crash, but a controlled crash.
Exactly.
But it wasn't the impact
No, it was the drowning. They couldn't get out of they couldn't get the harnesses off. Yeah. I saw somebody last night on the news explain that you would have had to really be proficient. The way they're strapped in, you got to go back to the small of your back and try to unscrew this pin and everything.
It's not just the one button, I guess, that you push, because some of those what they call the 5-point harnesses, you just push one button and it all disengages. I guess not. Right,
and one of them was a firefighter, so he would have been. I guarantee you, pretty calm. Let's get out of here. Get his friends out, and a couple of them were best friends. It's just an awful story, and I don't know. This is just haunting me. I guess you just have to always be aware of your surroundings. Think about what you're going to do in the event of an emergency. I saw a report last night that supposedly the pilot was supposed to give them a safety briefing about how to take a knife, or should have been a knife that could be used to cut them out of those harnesses. And there was some allegation that maybe that briefing wasn't given. So I don't know. The whole thing just sickens me because
you're absolutely right. I feel for you too, and thanks for bringing that up because we opened the show with it this morning as well. And it's a local story. It's as local as it gets, and all of us get on a chopper. I mean, my goodness gracious. It's funny though you said that because now in my car I have one of those things that cuts the seatbelt. But
do you really?
Yes, it's got a thing. It breaks the window, cuts the seatbelt. God forbid.
That's so smart.
You're not going to ever think in a million years, because like Mr. Windmiller said, it's a pretty safe way to travel anymore. But
you're thinking ahead. See, that's great, Joe. You think about, and we all should do that. We should take that extra step to think, God forbid, if we wind up, if the vehicle winds up in a pond or something, in the winter, how do I get the window open? How do I get out of the seatbelt if I'm upside down and the car's on fire? Yeah. So I'm glad you have. So do you have like a kit in the car?
No, it's a
safety kit?
It's a device, and we're on camera showing the device. It's you hold it, and it's got a little pointed metal thing that if you take it and you hit the window right in the center of the window. It shatters the window, and then on the reverse back of this handle, it's got a blade, and then it will cut right through the seatbelt.
That's really smart.
I keep it on the left, like in the left-hand side of my door, just in case. But then I got to worry about the kids in the back, the kids in a special seat.
Sure.
It's just it's dangerous all the time.
But you're going to give them a fighting chance, and that's all that you can ask for.
Yeah, and we'll find out as that unfolds. And I know that you just enjoyed watching Hillary Clinton in India. I'm sure this is going to be one of your...
Yeah. I was also very sorry to see her slip down the steps.
What happened? Did you see that? I'm so...
What the heck?
I feel...
Well...
Mike.
I mean, I feel for listen. After having a hip replacement a couple of years ago, I'm always afraid of falling. I mean, I'm of a certain age too. I mean, I'm not as old as she is, and you're younger than all of us, Joe. But,
please.
But you think about the poor woman fell down not once but twice. Almost took a tumble down those steps.
Did you see that, Mike?
Yes.
And if you're listening to Mike, it's Mike Gallagher, Piscopo, and I got to tell you, I don't want to make fun, but she first of all she said so many derogatory things toward Americans in India.
Just awful.
That was awful. And then she's walking down. She's got some strong guy to her left, somebody else on her right. She fell once, and then she took a couple more steps. She fell again. Mike, I don't think she was physically able to be president of the United States anyway.
I mean, Lance Anderson, my producer, said if you see that video, you say we kind of dodged a bullet because she's not physically able to, and I don't know. I mean, she falls a lot. I mean, if you you ever see the video of her getting on the airplane? She went down on the top. She goes up the steps of an airplane during the campaign. She trips. I listen.
And not to be cruel,
fell like that,
yeah.
no, not to be cruel. Because if I fell like that, I'd never get up. They'd have to carry me out in a bag. I mean, she went down like a sack of potatoes. That poor lady. I mean,
is that the sketch? Is that the sketch on SNL? Hillary, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah, because
she's
had some notable falls, and I mean, just some tumbles. I mean, remember when they made fun of? We're old enough to remember how they made fun of Jerry Ford because he kept falling all the time. Well, heck, she's going down pretty regularly. So anyhow, I'm glad she's all right. But you're right, the stuff she said is awful. And in that same vein, we're going to tackle today the Joy Behar Mike Pence situation. You know, last night, Vice President Pence was on with Sean Hannity on Fox, and he expressed how Joy Behar had called Pence personally to apologize for her vicious, vile comments about Christianity, and how he's hearing voices in his head. That's mental illness. That praying to God is a form of mental illness. Well, you know what? It's all right. I mean, it's one thing to call Pence in a private conversation. She wasn't ripping him. She was ripping Christians. She was ripping Christianity. She was ripping the millions and millions of people all over the world. So how about you made these comments on your TV show, Joy? Why don't you make the comment? Why don't you apologize publicly? That would show some grace. That would show some class. I don't expect any soon from Joy Behar, but it'd be nice to see a heartfelt apology over mocking and castigating the millions of people who happen to be Christian.
All right, Mike Gallagher, and at 10 o'clock on AM 970, The Answer. Mike, always enjoy your previous year.
Bury the lead real quick. Attorney General Jeff Sessions on the show today at 10:45. We're going to talk to the AG about gun control. We're going to talk about immigration. I'm going to ask him about the pushback that some conservatives give him, that he hasn't done enough on the Russia investigation and his whole role on that. So we're going to talk exclusively to the Attorney General Jeff Sessions at about 11:45 today, sir, on AM 970, The Answer.
Mike Gallagher, thanks. We love you, Michael. Have a great show today.
Love you too.
AM 970.
Everybody knows this guy. No, everybody knows he can do a radio show. Joe Piscopo. Mornings, 6 to 10 on AM 970, The Answer.